we follows later on when we watch them. With a box of popcorn or food for munching, one waits temptingly for the story to unfold, the battle between the ghost and the victim. All this excitement to watch that one entity being the center of all the causes in the movie, especially bad ones in all horror movies. Now, what if this one entity or evil person changes to two? Even more exciting, right? It's just another delicious layer of topping on the cake. Or some can also consider this a cherry on top. Here are the top 15 movies that introduce the most evil and creepy twins in the cinematic universe. Tighten your seatbelts, cause we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. Grady Sisters, come play with us. Does this line hit a certain somewhere in your brain? Yes, if you are thinking about the Grady Sisters, then you are right. This line became one of the most popular horror quotes and still possesses the chilly effect when said. Often referred to as the Grady twins, these sisters, who are not related together, are among the most iconic and terrifying characters in the horror genre. Yes, you heard that right. They are not blood related. The mention of this duo roots in Bill Watson's book, which was later adapted to a movie of the same name, The Shining. Released in 1980, The Shining resonates with the story of Jack Torrance, an alcoholic recovering from his addiction and also an aspiring writer. To support himself and his family, he takes a job in the Overlook Hotel as a winter caretaker. He shifted there with his wife Wendy and his son Danny, totally unaware of the horror that would seep him in. As the winter season progressed slowly, Jack felt himself descending into madness because of the hotel's evil influences on him. Of course, these influences were not just any evil, they were related to the Grady sisters, which further led him to terrorize his family. Jack's son, Danny, possessed a psychic ability that allowed him to see the whole terrifying past of the hotel. The Grady sisters, who appear to Danny as eerie apparitions, are former residents of the Overlook Hotel who were murdered by their father, Delbert Grady, a previous caretaker. Delbert Grady went insane, like Jack, under the hotel's influence and murdered his daughters with an axe and then further committed suicide. Danny was able to see the Grady sisters standing hand in hand, wearing matching blue frocks, creepily calling Danny to play with them for eternity. The twins. Slim black glasses, same chiseled faces, identical dreadlocks, a suit, a coat, and a tie. Sounds cool, right? Well, yeah. Adrian Raymond and Neil Raymond are among the most memorable antagonists in the Matrix trilogy. This duo is featured explicitly in The Matrix Reloaded, released in 2003. The Matrix trilogy consists of 3 movies, the first released in 1999, the second in 2003, and the third in 2003 named Matrix Revolution. The movie revolves around Neo as a savior who is hell-bent and destined to save humans from the Matrix, with the sole goal of ending the war between humans and machines and free them from being part of the Matrix. Now, if you don't know what the Matrix is, it is basically a simulated reality, simply a facade of realism. What if the house you're living in doesn't exist at all? What if it's just a facade of realism? Well, Matrix is exactly that. This theory dates back to Indian philosophies describing us humans living in the world of Maya. We can only see this poisonous duo in The Matrix Reloaded, the second part of this trilogy, but their impact resonates throughout the whole trilogy. The twins play a crucial role as the Merovingians' henchmen, a rogue program responsible for the intricate web of control within the Matrix. Villains who are unbeatable, smoothly uses sharp tools and skilled martial arts with the ability and agility required to avoid gunfire or any kind of harm from other weapons. How does it sound? Crazy, right? The Raymond twins are packed with these abilities. This power not only makes them difficult to combat, but also adds a supernatural touch to their existence. Dwayne, Bradley, and Belial. Frank Henenlotter's cult classic film Basket Case has garnered a dedicated following over the years due to its central characters Dwayne, Bradley, and Belial. This movie tells us the story of a man named Dwayne Bradley. Bradley is portrayed as a young man who arrives in New York City carrying a large yet mysterious basket, a basket carrying a deadly monster. The history of this basket goes way back. Dwayne and Belial are conjoined Siamese twins, and their mother died giving birth to them. Due to this, Dwayne's father, Mr. Bradley, was extremely angry and blamed Belial for the cause of his wife's death. He later persuaded a group of doctors to operate on them. Mr. Bradley discarded Belial to his fate and kept Dwayne as his only son. Soon, Dwayne found Belial because of the brothers' strong telepathic connection, and the duo conspired against their father, ultimately killing him. The operation, carried out by a group of doctors, left Belial severely disfigured and vengeful. The brothers were surgically separated against their will, and this led to the basket and its monstrously deformed twin brothers. Further, Dwayne and Belial moved to New York City for the very purpose of killing the doctors who separated them. This film follows Belial's murderous rampage across the city. The duo was deeply engrossed in making their plans work. Amidst all of this, Dwayne developed a love interest in Sharon, one of the doctor's secretaries. Belial, however, did not approve, and his jealousy soon led him to rape and murder Sharon. Dwayne found himself descending into insanity when he discovered that Susan, his second love interest, had been pregnant with a mutant child for 6 years. Susan's body was disfigured due to not giving birth for such an extended period, making her somewhat similar to her brother. At this point, Dwayne desperately wanted to escape, but his past and its consequences left him trapped forever. Emily James Wan, who is known for his expertise in this genre. This movie introduces us to two characters, Emily and Gabriel. Florence Weaver. We see Dr. Florence Weaver in a video recording where he's talking about a patient named Gabriel. Further, we see that there's a sudden rush in the hospital, and the cause of the rush is Gabriel himself. Now, flashing back to the present day, we meet our protagonist, Madison Michelle. Madison is pregnant with her abusive husband Derek's child. He abuses Madison like a male with nothing better to do. Later, Madison's real name was revealed to be Emily, who was born with a parasitic twin named Gabriel. Danielle and Dominique. Directed by Brian De Palma, the story of Sisters begins with an ad man, Philip Wood. Peeping Toms videotapes people in questionable situations to test their conscience and their true nature at different places and times. Philip finds himself in a changing room where a blind woman undresses herself. By turning away, he proves his conscience through this moral choice, unaware of the hidden cameras filming him. Later, as a reward, he went on a date with the blind woman, who was a perfectly sighted Quebecois model, Danielle. After their date at a Manhattan night spot, Philip ends up spending the night at Danielle's apartment. The very next morning, Philip was found dead, brutally murdered with no evidence of the crime. A neighbor, Grace, who is also a journalist, witnessed the crime and set out to uncover the truth. Her quest leads her to Dominique, Danielle's twin sister. The film reveals that the twins were once conjoined and were surgically separated. Dominique, however, has a violent and psychotic nature, unlike Danielle, who is more composed and normal. Danielle seems to be the victim from the beginning, but there are dark secrets in her harbor too. Elliot and Beverly Mantle. It is a psychological thriller about identical twin gynecologists, both of whom are portrayed by Jeremy Irons. Directed by David Cronenberg, Dead Ringers was released in the year 1988 as a psychological thriller horror film. The twins have successful careers as gynecologists, specializing in fertility issues. They clinically practice in Toronto. Even though they were twins, their personalities were quite different. Elliot is a charismatic, confident, and often the public face of the practice, while Beverly is an introverted nerd. However, the brothers' different personalities didn't stop them from creating a good bond. Elliot often seduced every other woman coming into their clinic, and once he grew tired of them, he passed them on to Beverly for him to sexually relieve himself, but the women in question were not informed and did not catch up on the change. Things took a different turn when Claire, a famous actress, came to their clinic for treatment. After the treatment, Claire finds out that she will never be able to have children. Elliot, as usual, entices Claire and then persuades Beverly to sleep with her. Beverly, on the other hand, starts getting emotionally attached to Claire. This attachment started the cause of the wreaking havoc between the two brothers. Claire comes to find out that both the brothers have been sexually involved with her without her knowledge. She eventually leaves Toronto for a film, and Beverly descends into depression. The pair get suspended from practicing in their clinic due to Beverly and his extreme doses of prescribed drugs, which causes him to cross the boundaries of medical ethics. Elliot starts taking drugs as well to be able to imitate Beverly. The duo ultimately welcomes their death due to their choices. Todd and Terry. It's natural for a small child, or even a teenage child, to feel rage when he witnesses one of his parents engaging romantically with someone else. Something similar happens to Terry and his mother, Maddie, who engages romantically with someone else. In the absence of a father, Terry feels a burning rage every time he sees his mom with a different partner. In a drive-in where Terry and Todd were watching a movie, he witnesses his mother romantically engaging with another guy. The anger that he felt at that moment led him to kill a teenage guy having intercourse with his girlfriend in the back of a car. His malicious intent did not end there, though. He even framed his brother Todd to face the consequences of the crime he committed by smearing blood on his clothes and handing him the tool he used to murder. Unaware of this, Maddie started disliking Todd and considering Terry to be a favorable child. 10 years later, Todd manages to escape from the mental asylum. At the same time, Terry lives a comfortable life, seemingly well-adjusted and free from suspicion. Thanksgiving arrives, and Terry finds himself going into a psychotic rampage of bloodbaths when his mother gets engaged to Brad. Brad obviously became the first victim in this bloodbath, with his right hand chopped and his head split in two. This does not calm Terry. He continues to murder every other person in his sight. Upon learning about Todd's escape, he mentally decides to frame him again. Maddie, on the other hand, starts drinking heavily on the news of Todd's return, that she has actually killed Terry, not Todd. Maddie's favorable child's death leads her to commit suicide in front of Todd, who is left with a fate unknown. Elias and Lucas. Good Night Mommy revolves around twin brothers, Elias and Lucas, who live in a secluded house with their mother. The story begins with their mother returning home after undergoing cosmetic surgery, her face bandaged, and her demeanor drastically changed. Having stayed with their father after their parents' divorce, the twins, feeling alienated and suspicious, doubting their mother's identity, believing she might be an imposter. Their mother also sets out some rules for them to follow, such as not entering her room and not wandering in the barn. The kids, unaware of the gravity of the situation, wandered into the barn, which led them to their punishment of staying indoors. The boys inspect the changes in their mother, how she is always angry or alone in her room with the lack of curiousness and love for them. They also discover that their mother had green eyes in an old photograph, and now her eyes are blue. Imagine waking up one morning only to find yourself tied to the bed with duct tape. That's exactly what happens to their mother. Panicked and desperate, she demands to be freed, insisting she wore green contact lenses for a role, which are present in her purse downstairs. But Lucas claims to have already searched the purse and found nothing. Elias, on the other hand, hates seeing her mother like this, so he decides to rummage his mother's purse and finds the green contact lenses. Caught in the act, Lucas shows up and begs Elias to let him explain, but Elias is determined and rushes to free mother while Lucas mysteriously disappears. Lucas was Elias's dead brother, who was accidentally killed by Elias himself. The Twin Sisters. A rape revenge movie with a medical surgery horror trope? Sounds exciting, right? American Mary is exactly the film if you're looking for a sensitive trope like this. Mary is a medical student struggling to thrive financially. She was always at the top of her class, but this always attracted her male professor's wrath upon her. Even though she is a brilliant student, her academic excellence didn't help her make ends meet. Desperately looking for a job, Mary comes across a strip club advertisement out for a dancer and ends up hitting the club with a resume. The club owner, Billy, decides to send Mary away but changes his mind because of her resume, as he requires urgent help with patching up one of his members. Short of money, she decided to perform the medical procedure unethically. With psychopathic and victimized tendencies, Mary, played by Catherine Isabel, was paid a visit by an odd-looking woman named Beatrice. Beatrice turned out to be a victim of plastic surgery, as her face was ruined through multiple surgeries just for imitating the face of Betty Boop. Word soon spread among people who had the money for unethical practices that were medically not authorized. Among these were twins Jen and Sylvia, German twins who were obsessed with cracking the beauty standards and doing everything together. Beauty is pain, and this quote proves itself through the grotesque and complicated surgery this duo went through just for the sake of standing out in the crowd. She became a full-time surgeon to this misfit by dropping out of med school, but the truth doesn't hide itself for long, does it? Maria and Frieda Gellhorn. Set in Styria in the 17th century, are central characters who are also identical twins. Maria and Frieda Gellhorn shift to Karnstein, Central Europe. They decided to live with their uncle Gustav instead of Venice because of being recently orphaned. Gustav, their stern and puritanical uncle, is the leader of the Brotherhood. Now, the Brotherhood is a fanatical group responsible for hunting down witches and vampires. They both contain resentment towards their uncle for his sternness, but Maria holds her ground, unlike Frieda, who, being the more adventurous and risk-taker twin, finds a way to escape. Her escape leads to being fascinated to Count Karnstein, who is known for having a bad reputation. Little did she know the Count indeed had malicious intent. He practices black magic and Satanism, calling forth Countess Mirkala Karnstein right from her grave through a human girl's sacrifice. The Countess helps Karnstein turn into a vampire, and this starts the storm. Frieda's nightly excursions increased after she was turned into a vampire by Karnstein through one of her nightscapes to the castle. Maria was the one responsible for covering her sister's absence. Meanwhile, Maria finds her interest in a young man named Anton, who is more infatuated with Frieda. Frieda is eventually captured and put in jail after she attacks a member of the Brotherhood, while the Count replaces Maria in Frieda's stance by kidnapping her. Maria's life continues to be at stake with this misunderstanding, as she is held captive instead of Frieda, unknown of what might be written in her fate. Holly and Heather. The movie centers on a young girl named Jordan, who moves to a small town to live with her aunt and uncle after the death of her parents, unaware of the fact that the town of Silver Falls harbors a sinister secret. Her father died of leukemia, while her mother met her death by drowning when she was just 5 years old. Jordan soon finds herself haunted by the spirits of twin sisters, Holly and Heather Dahl, discovering that Silver Falls is not as serene as it seems. Her aunt Tara is an identical twin of her mother and her uncle. The haunting began when Jordan was watching a mannequin burning at the park, a place where teens of the town go to parties. Upon the police raid, Jordan wanders into the forest, discovers a silver ring, and wears the ring without a second thought. She realizes that she is unable to remove the ring from her finger. Turns out that the ring belonged to a girl who was dragged and murdered 20 years ago in that same forest, but no one knew about it. The spirit starts to trouble her by disturbing the peace of the house, destroying and misplacing things here and there. Jordan seeks the twins' father in the cell, who is charged with the murder of his daughters. The man asks Jordan to try to understand what his daughters are trying to say. Up until this moment, Jordan could only see one twin. That night, she had a vivid dream in which both twins were trying to signal her somewhere and warn her about being the next victim of the murderer. The next day, one of the twin spirits lured her to her aunt's room, where she found the last matching ring of the second twin in her aunt's belongings. Thad Beaumont and George Stark. Stephen King's psychological horror novel, The Dark Half, was adapted into a movie in 1993, directed by George A. Romero. Thad is a successful author known widely for his best-selling murder mystery novels. He writes under the pseudonym or pen name George Stark. His novels are known to be brutal and violent, which has helped him garner a cult following. Still, he decides to retire by publicly killing off Stark so he can focus seriously on other literary works. Who knew this decision of his would lead to gruesome consequences? Stark became an embodiment of Thad's darker impulses and started haunting him. He comes to life and goes on a killing spree, especially targeting those who were involved in his murder. Who would have ever thought a pen name would come alive from a human's darker impulses? With a bloody rampage and dead bodies being found here and there, Thad automatically falls under suspicion. Things take a drastic turn when Stark harasses Thad's family members through phone calls and also threatens them with murder. As the murders escalate, Thad finds himself under suspicion and must confront Stark to stop the bloodshed. Thad soon finds out that Stark is no one but his parasitic twin, who unfortunately died during childbirth. The local doctor informed Thad about Stark, his parasitic twin, who is actually living inside his brain. Stark was living through Thad's books, but when he killed him in his writings, that's what enraged Stark to scurry out. Thad's connection to Stark was more profound than he realizes. As Stark embodies his repressed anger and violent tendencies, he immediately follows Stark's wishes, and soon everything evens out, and the movie points out the truth of the dark half lying under us human beings. Mishka and Grischka. Mishka and Grischka are the famous knife-thrower assassins who star in the movie Octopussy. Octopussy is a spy movie following our protagonist, the very famous James Bond. These twins are professional knife throwers who perform in Octopussy Circus, but this is not where their sinister role ends. They are deeply involved in the nefarious schemes orchestrated by the film's primary villains, Kamal Khan and General Orlov. The film begins with a scene in East Berlin where this duo ruthlessly eliminates Agent 009. Agent 009 is a British agent who is dressed as a circus clown carrying a Fabergé egg. Now, for those of you who don't know, a Fabergé egg is an egg made by the House of Fabergé, a famous Russian jewelry firm. These eggs are made of luxurious materials, intricate designs, and hidden surprises inside, making them a sought-after piece. Mishka and Grischka are known for their intellect and cunning nature because no planned crime can ever be carried out without using brains. One can see their complete disregard for human life and moral boundaries in their dedication to carry out the orders of Kamal Khan and General Orlov with precision and brutality. The death of Agent 009 urges an entry for our hero, James Bond. What do you think these twins will face now? Kelly and Terry. A 1984 horror film directed by Larry Stewart, The Initiation, introduces us to Kelly Fairchild, the leading actor in the movie. Kelly has suffered from amnesia since she was 9 years old due to a head injury. She was always troubled by a strange dream where she walked into her parents' room as a child only to stab her father to death before he burned a strange man alive. She becomes determined to find out the meaning behind these recurring nightmares. So she pitches her friend Peter to do a sleep study on her. Of course, her friend knows the process since he is a graduate assistant in a psychology seminar. Soon after she takes part in her sorority's initiation ritual, a murderous rampage breaks out. One of Kelly's friends backs out because of the eerie vibe, leaving the three of them to their fates. Meanwhile, Peter, who was at the university, comes across some newspaper clippings that are highly similar to the fire Kelly exposed regarding her dream. It seems like Jason Randall is the man who falls victim to the fire, who was a floor manager at the Fairchild department once. This leads Peter to suspect that Jason is Kelly's biological father and that the other man in her dream is her father, Dwight. It turns out that everything Kelly dreamed about was actually true and a real incident that took place, but not exactly the way from Kelly's point of view. We meet Terry, the stabber, and Kelly's twin, whom Kelly forgot due to the traumatic events in their childhood. Her memory repressed itself when Kelly witnessed the murder of the man her mother, Frances, was having an affair with. And in the chaos, her father was horrifically burned when Jason pushed Dwight into the fire. Terry was sent to an asylum for her crime, but this led to her envious nature for not living a normal life like her sister. So she decided to get back at Kelly when Jason, Kelly's real father, a groundskeeper in the asylum, helped her escape. Niles and Holland Perry. Adapted into a movie in 1972, Thomas Tyron's novel The Other revolves around the twin brothers Niles and Holland. Set in a small rural community in the year 1930, Niles and Holland live on a farm with their family. Residing nearby is grandmother Ada, a Russian immigrant. Niles is pretty close to Ada due to his innocent and loving nature. Ada teaches Niles how to project himself astrally into other living bodies, but she soon learns that this is evil. Hence, she advises Niles not to play with it again. The boys called this the game. Now, for those who don't know what astral projection is, it is simply transferring one's mind into another living creature. At first glance, anyone would presume the horrific twin duo is like any other playful children. But as you delve deeper into this movie, that's when you realize what they really are. Strange and deadly accidents start taking place, plaguing the farm and its inhabitants. Chickens are found dead. Neighbors meet tragic deaths, which linger a cloud of suspicion with no one to reign upon. Ada soon understands that these events aren't just taking place and regrets her lessons than Niles because the deed is done once taught. A power learned upon how to blur the lines between reality and fantasy. Niles has been communicating with his twin brother, Holland, who is actually dead. Holland died in a tragic accident months earlier, but Niles, unable to cope with the loss, has been keeping his brother alive through the game. It becomes clear that Niles has been the one causing the accidents and deaths, while believing he was following Holland's instructions. Reluctant to accept Holland's death, Niles chooses to be forever trapped in this haunted reality. We have finally come to an end with 15 diabolical doppelgangers in the history of cinema. From the eerie twins to dark pasts and buried secrets, we've unraveled each layer slowly, presenting them to you. These films left us questioning with the plot twists they served, uncovering the haunting mysteries of fear and family ties, and also shows us the unsettling depths of the human psyche and complexities. If you've watched any of these bombers or any other movie which left you questioning the reality, hit us up in the comments section and stay tuned for more such thrilling videos. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe out there. Thanks, everyone.